What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. Today I'll be showcasing the new Infernoid support revealed a couple of days ago. But first, if you're a fan of in-depth combo videos, new set coverage, and occasional fun stuff that we like to do on the channel, then click on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons until a void opens right next to you, leading to a graveyard filled with Infernoid. Now, for these first few combos, I want to show off some instant fusion stuff because outside of Reasoning and Monster Gate, we now have another generic one-of that we can fit into our deck to help us get into the things we want to go for. Now, in this particular scenario, we're going to special summon out Infernoid Evil, which instant fusion treats as a fusion summon, which is important because this card takes two Infernoid monsters. It reads, if this card is fusion summoned, you can banish one Infernoid monster from your graveyard as a cost, send Infernoid monsters with different names from each other from your deck to the graveyard equal to the banished monster's level. If this card is sent to the graveyard or banished, you can add one Void spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Evil once per turn, and this is really nice because it just does so much for the deck, as even when you don't have an Infernoid monster, you can just go into something like Linkuriboh, and then get yourself the Void Vanishment, discard whatever you want to discard, and then you can get yourself into the Void Feast, and this is just the standard setup that Infernoids regularly wanted to get to, and Instant Fusion just makes it a more consistent way to get there, as what basically gets you is two monster negations, or one monster negation, and a spell and trap negation, or you can even get two spell and trap negations along with the Sajet, and you'll also have the Linkuriboh in order to block an attack if they try to beat over a Deviati with their normal summon, which is pretty nice. So we're just going to send a Deviati and the Onu, and from here we'll be able to end our turn on this. I would like to also point out, because we do have Infernoids that end up getting tributed off of their own effects, unless you have something like Lair of Darkness to tribute your opponent's monster, then they end up becoming fodder for your other Infernoids that are in the graveyard if you want to bring them out on your own turn for follow-up, which in this case, the high levels like Onu and Devi end up also being removal. So that's kind of how this deck plays beyond just its turn one setup. Now for this next combo, and I would like to give the credit to Master Dinnerflax. I'll leave his channel link down below, and I'll also link the video so that you can see where the ideas originated from. But I do want to show this because it is something I would consider in a 60 card build. I don't like the idea in a 40 card build just because you play so many Infernoid names and you're adding another brick with the Cobra, but this is just another way to search out your instant fusion, and you also have two plant level 3s, which you can do a lot of things with, as we're going to bring out our Evil, and you saw that we happened to pitch the Saitsumas. If you pitch another Infernoid, you'll end up sending whatever number of monsters equal to the level, so in this case we're going to send 7, and I kind of wanted to meet at the middle here, since the Devi and the Onu are kind of the high ones. If you play the Onu, it means that you play every name, and I would like to say that you can play every name if you would like to, especially if you're playing the pure version like I'm going to be showing for the 40 card build. But we're then going to go into our Jasmine with our Predaplants. We'll bring out the Devi so that we can protect our Jasmine. Do keep in mind you are kind of doing like a 50-50 here, where between Ash and Imperm, you don't know what your opponent's going to have. Onu hits the Imperm and Devi hits the Ash, and we're going to be able to tribute off our Evil for the Caticorn. Evil will then be able to trigger, as we'll also be able to chain block it with the Caticorn to get ourselves the Lair of Darkness from our deck, and then we'll be able to add ourselves the Vanishment off of the Evil, and now we can activate the Void Vanishment. We'll use its effect, and I would like to point out that if you're going first and you want to end on Appaloosa, you'll go into Appaloosa before activating the Void Vanishment, but because I am just showcasing the new cards, I'm going to activate the Void Vanishment first because I'm not going to go into the Appo, and then we're going to go into our Infernoid Flood. This is a Link 4 that takes 2+ monsters, including an Infernoid monster. When your opponent would special summon a monster's quick effect, you can tribute one monster, negate the activation, or negate the summon, and if you do, banish that monster's. If a card is banished from your graveyard, you can banish one card on the field. If this link summoned card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Infernoid monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning condition. You can only use each effect of Flood once per turn. And this is a nice card because it kind of gives you the option. I think that Appaloosa is better going first, but if you're going second, Flood is definitely an interesting option because it gives you more removal options while also being able to negate a summon as follow-up for the next turn, but we'll be able to activate our Lair of Darkness, and I would like to point out that you're negating a special summon, just to reiterate on that, but we're going to set the Feast. The Lair of Darkness is a mandatory activation at the end phase, as we'll then be able to activate the Void Feast. We'll send off the Vanishment, and another thing that I would like to point out is that you'll see that we're going to special summon out the Sajet along with the two Decatrons, and we'll be able to resolve both effects. As you saw, I happened to send 7 names off of the evil, so even with a bunch of Infernoids in the graveyard, it is kind of nice that we still have the resources to do this play considering the bumped up Infernoid count and the consistency that we get from the new cards. Now for this final Instant Fusion combo, before I get into the test hands, and I'm going to do more test hands than combos just because I feel like Infernoid is mill Dark World, and I say that in a way that the way Dark World kind of just draws and discards in order to get to its end result. You're doing the same with Infernoid, but milling instead. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to hand rip for 4 and end on a gigantic board beyond that. That said, your graveyard does become a massive resource, and we're going to be able to normal summon our Decatron. We'll send the Onu. You can also send the Devi, but I'm doing the Onu because I want to show that you can indeed send all 10 names if you would like to. As we're going to use the Instant Fusion to bring out the evil, we'll banish the Onu, and now we're going to send our 10 names, as we're going to then be able to combo off from there, go into our Link Karibo. You'll be able to trigger off the effect of evil, as you'll get yourself the next new card, Void Barrier, and this one reads, Infernoid monsters you control gain 100 attack for each of your banished Infernoid monsters. If you control no monsters or only Fiend monsters, you can activate one of these effects. Add one of your banished Infernoid monsters to your hand, special summon one Infernoid monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. You can only use this effect of Void Barrier once per turn. Now, we're going to continue by going into the Nightmare Phoenix, and then we're going to bring out our Saitsuma, as then we can bring out the Attendel. We'll then be able to go into the Flood or the 3-material Appaloosa. We're going to go into the Flood because in this particular scenario, I grabbed the Barrier, and there's no reason to go for the Barrier if you don't go for the Flood. So we're going to be able to use the Flood's effect in order to get back the Antra, and now we'll be able to special summon out the Antras. We'll special summon back out the Onu or the Deviati, whichever one you want to get yourself, and we'll end our board on this. Now, there are different variations that you can do regarding stuff like Appaloosa, getting yourself Void Vanishment or Void Imagination, depending on the scenario you're in, especially if you have more cards in hand and stuff like that. But the focus here is just to show off the new cards. Now, for the final new card, we have Void Blaze Up, and this one reads, reveal one Infernoid monster or one Void spell trap in your hand, discard your entire hand, then draw the same number of cards you discarded. So it's just card destruction as long as you reveal an Infernoid or Void spell trap. If you control no monsters or only Fiend monsters, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target up to 11 of your banished Infernoid monsters with different names as a cost, return them to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Blaze Up once per duel. And this is a really nice card, not just because you can card destruction and mulligan your hand, but just the fact that evil happens to send basically all of your monsters to the graveyard if you happen to banish a high enough level Infernoid, and being able to get them back, as this is also a discard for Void Vanishment potentially, makes this a really nice card. So we're going to start here by activating the Blaze Up, and this will just card destruction our hand as we don't really have anything to do with it. As we're then going to summon our Decatron, we'll be able to send any any Infernoid, remember that Monster Gate is a cost. You'll see me send the Deviati. I'm just sending anything that we can at this point. But we're going to activate the Monster Gate. We'll then be able to mill a bunch of cards here, unless you get unlucky and immediately hit a Decatron or any other thing that you can summon that isn't a dead Infernoid name. In this case, you'll see that we're going to reveal the Patchwork engine, and we're going to special summon out the imp off of the Monster Gate, bring back the Saitama, as we'll then go into the Nightmare Phoenix. And I would like to point out that if we did not have this poly or the access to the for Patchwork off of the chain, you can go into Proxy F Magician for this next part, but we're going to special summon out the Saitama. We'll activate the Fright for Patchwork, getting ourselves the other imp along with the second poly. We'll then be able to bring back the Attendel. We'll then activate the poly, and this is what I mean. If you had the Proxy F Magician, it's the same outcome, but because we had the Fright for Patchwork, it's just why not use it instead of expending a resource from the extra deck that you can use later throughout the duel. But we're going to be able to fuse into the Evil, as we're then going to go into the Crusadia Equimax, or you can go into Nightmare Unicorn. The point is just to be able to get that Link 4 access, as we're going to go into the Vanishment, back the Saitama, as we can then go into the Flood. If you want to go into the Appaloosa, you can do that also. We'll use the Vanishment now, as we'll pitch the Edge Imp, get ourselves the Feast, and now we can set the Feast, as we'll be able to go onto our opponent's turn, activate the Feast, and then you can special summon out the two Decatrons, or the Decatron along with the Saitama, and then you can use the Decatron's effect in order to send the Onu. I would also like to point out that you could have potentially also summoned another name, unless, no, I banished all of them. So this will be our end board along with the Talent and the Poly, and it's not much. Fortunately for us, we're not in the type of environment where there's too many unbreakable boards, and because we have such a stacked graveyard for follow-up, when you consider that we have the Phase Up in the graveyard for our next turn, we can just put all our Infernoids back into the graveyard and then use them again. Makes the deck not as flimsy. You also have to consider that if you want to play around Dark Ruler, you can also save the Void Feast, or if you want to play around anything that may worry you in regards to your opponent answering your entire board with just one card. This will be the last of the pure one, as I want to show off the 60 card variant after, and we're going to normal summon our Decatron. You'll see that we got a hand full of Infernoids, so we'll special summon out the Antra, go into our Proxy. We'll then be able to special summon out Sajet. We'll bring out the Harma. We'll then use the Proxy, as we'll be able to go into the Evil. The Evil will then banish the Sajet. And now we can get 6 sends, as we are playing all 10 names for the video, as we can then go into our Apo. We can then use the effect of the Evil, which will be able to net us a search for the Void Vanishment. You can end up searching any other name. The reason why I searched Vanishment is because since I am working on limited cards here, I wanted to treat it as any Void card depending on the circumstance you're in. But from here, we'll be able to special summon out the Onu, and we can end our turn with a Spell and Trap Negate along with the 3 monster negations, and anything else that you may have with the Void Vanishment, as this can also get you into Feast and stuff like that. Now for these final 2 replays, and I want to show off the Horus cards as well, since they are coming in a month. I am also using the new field spell, which comes out a little bit later, but because we also don't know when we get these cards, just might as well. And this is MSD Glory of Horus. If you control King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only special summon MSD once per turn this way. You can only use each of the following effects of MSD once per turn. You can send 2 cards from your hand to the graveyard, including this card. Add 1 King Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand, then you can draw 1 card. So that's where the pros of this card are, where you can just discard a name and then get a draw to potentially RNG your way into a combo piece. When other cards you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, while this card is in your monster zone, except during the damage step, you can send 1 card on the field to the graveyard. I would also like to point out that it is level 8. In my next combo, I will have a way that you can actually utilize that pretty easily. So we're going to start here by activating our Glory, as we'll pitch the Blaze up, get ourselves the King Sarcophagus, and the King Sarcophagus is a continuous spell that reads Horus Monster monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects unless they target them. You can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, send one Horus monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of King Sarcophagus up to 4 times per turn. Once per turn, at the start of the damage step, if your Horus monster battles an opponent's monster, you can send that opponent's monster to the graveyard. The point of this will be to bring back the Horus, as we're then going to activate the monster gate without committing too much. And you saw a Clash of the Gozen match there, currently not maining it, but those were just options that I was looking at as I was building the deck. We're now going to activate the Poly, use the 2 monsters, go into the Evil so that we can banish the Deviati, a bunch of sends, as we'll then be able to go into the Linkuriboh, use the effect of the Evil, which will get us Blaze Up. Something that I like to do is, if you have the Vanishment along with a Blaze Up in graveyard, get yourself the other copy of Blaze Up, just so that you can discard it and protect yourself from opponent getting that one random banish, unless they have like 2 DD Crow or something. But we're then going to bring out the Sightsamos. We'll be able to bring out another copy of it, go into our Equimax. Do keep in mind, if you want to go into Appaloosa, you can go into Appaloosa, but I'm just going to go into Flood for the video, as we'll bring out the Deviati, activate the Void Vanishment. If you do go for the Appaloosa, you'll go for the Onu instead of the Deviati, so you have the Spell and Trap Negate, but we'll get our Void Imagination now, and because we don't have anything for the Void Feast in our deck, just going to go for the Imagination so that we can get another Infernoid on board, as our Deviati is level 1 because of the Imagination, and we'll be able to end our board on this. Now, for this final one, I will be showing the alternate route that you can kind of take with this deck, and this one is the new Horus field spell. It's called Stonewall of the Imperial Tombs. The card's name becomes King Sarcophagus while in the field zone. During your main phase, you can add 1 Horus monster from your deck to your hand, then place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. You can only use each effect of Stonewall once per turn. If you activate the effect of Horus, the Black Flame Deity, which it doesn't matter in this particular build, you can draw 1 card. Now, the entire point of this is to get into your MSD so that your MSD can get a discard / search and draw. And we're now going to use the effect of the MSD, as this will also grant us the ability to get the body on board, which is nice. We draw into the Scorpio, which won't matter because we're normal summoning our Decatron. We're then going to special summon out the Attendel, and do keep in mind, as you saw, I'm not playing around hand traps whatsoever because I want to take a specific line of play here, as we're going to bring back the Horus, and then we're going to go into our Coach King. We're going to use the effect of the Coach King, and this will net us 3 draws. If you happen to draw a monster, you'll be able to burn your opponent for damage, but we didn't draw a monster, as we did get the Void Vanishment along with the Fright for Engine, so we'll use the Fright for Patchwork. We'll then activate the Void Vanishment. You can then pitch the Edge Imp or whatever else you want to pitch, get yourself the Void Feast, which will be enough to give you a turn 1 setup, as you'll then be able to search yourself your other Fright for Patchwork. We'll then set the Void Feast, go on to our opponent's turn, where we'll be able to activate the Feast, pitch the Blaze Up, as we'll then be able to get the Sajet along with the 2 Decatrons. Decatrons can get their effects, which will give us the 2 negations via the Onu and the Decatron or the Deviati, and we'll end our turn on. So with all of the combos out of the way, we can finally get onto the deck profile, and as promised, I wanted to show off a pure version of the deck, especially because I've seen so many variants and not enough of the pure build, and the pure build does kind of need the Fright for Patchwork engine, as it is the way that you are fusing away 2 Infernoid monsters consistently outside of just Vanishment into Imagination or hard drawing the Imagination to get into the Evil. That said, you'll see that we actually did fit the 10 Infernoid names into the deck. You can choose not to play the level 1 if you want to play another copy of any of these, but I do find having that extra name does help the consistency of the deck because you happen to play the extra name, so I do like that. You'll also see that we have the Reasoning and the Monster Gate along with the Instant Fusion. These 3 cards hold the same value now, and I know that some people may not agree with that, but the way that I see it is that this gets you directly into the evil, which gets you into your Void Vanishment, which gets you into the Void Feast, and that's all you can really ask for as an Infernoid player, whereas the Reasoning and the Monster Gate, you're hoping that you don't hit this, or you're hoping that you don't hit this too soon. One thing that you may notice is the lack of going second cards, or at least the lack of going second generic cards, and the reason I say that is because this entire deck is kind of going second card. Petrulio is a spell trap removal that only takes 1 to banish. Karma is a monster removal that only takes 1 to banish. The Antra removes a face-up card that your opponent controls, while the level 1 removes a set that your opponent controls. This one is attack and banish a monster from your opponent's extra deck while also being a DD Crow as long as you tribute a monster, either itself or another. The Saitsumas is one where if you attack, as long as it's an opponent's monster that you attack, you can banish an opponent's card at the end of the battle phase, while the Attendel is a double attack, and both of these have the same effect as the Sijet, where they're both quick effect DD Crows, whereas these are just on your opponent's turn. So then we also have the two Onus, which this is a board wipe for monsters, as well as a spell trap negate. This is a board wipe for spell and traps, as well as a monster negate. And then you have the Decatron, which is a normal summon. Copy the effect of whatever you send, as well as the level and the name. Do keep in mind that if you send anything high level, you won't be able to bring back any of your Infernoids if that's what you're going for. So make sure you sequence that right. The 3 Void Feast is just because of the interaction of Void Feast, send Void Feast. Being able to double or even triple feast your opponent can be really strong, and it kind of supplements the weak going first boards that you saw throughout those replays. I would also like to reiterate that this is kind of like a going second card. Your opponent is forced to immediately respond to this, or else they can really get hurt by it. As if you summon out Tierra, you can send Entis, you can even send the Flood or a copy of Evil if you haven't used it yet to get its effect. But just the fact that Flood is a name for that is also pretty nice, because if you happen to use the Evil and you're not going to go into this, you can just send this anyways. Outside of that, I'd like to think that the list is pretty self-explanatory. I would like to go over some of the options. I'll leave a link down below to Lithium's video, as he featured a Dark World version of the deck. I just didn't want to deviate from the pure version because I felt like it was the most natural way to play the deck, where with the Dark World stuff, I just didn't want to potentially clog on too much Dark Worlds with Infernoid names, which can kind of be a hindrance towards that version. The Accession allows you to banish Infernoids from the graveyard in order to go into your Evil, and the Dark Corridor can discard whatever card you want. Search your Genta, get you into the Gates discards any Fiend. It's your Infernoids along with the Edgem Chains are all Fiend, so it's cute synergy that you can do, but it's not something that I would do in a 40 card build in my opinion. Then there's the Predaplant engine, as you saw. As stated, I'm not playing it in a 40 card build because you're already playing so many Infernoid names. The Dark Fusion is another interesting option where you have the adjusted gold if you don't want to invest as much space on the Fright for Engine stuff. Just food for thought with that. Then there's Blaster, another card that you can play for going second. Horus cards, which again I would regulate to the 60 card build. These are some extra deck options that you can play. The Hita will be more relevant when fire decks are more relevant. Rescue Ace is still a deck with Gazelle back at 3 that could be a thing. We don't even know what the format will look like when we get this. And of course I want to talk about Shifter. Shifter is just a very annoying card for this deck. Unfortunately, it solos it the same way it solos Dark World, so that's worth mentioning for sure. And with that, I'll take you onto the card by card before I take you onto the 60 card list. We have the 3 Decatron, 3 Vanishment, 3 Imagination, 3 Blaze, 3 Feast, 1 Pat, 1 Harm, 1 Antra, 1 Pier, 1 Sijet, Saitsumas, 1 Attendel, 2 Onu, 2 Deviati, 1 Thrust, the 2 Talents, Patchwork, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Reasoning, 2 Poly, the 2 Edgem Chain, the 1 Monster Gate, along with the Void Barrier. We have the 1 Omega, the Guardian Chimera for the Fright for Engine, the 2 Entis, the 2 Tierra, the 2 Evil, Link Karibo, Nightmare Phoenix, Proxy, Nightmare Unicorn, Equimax for going second, just easy OTKs, Flood, and Apo for the deck profile. For the second profile, it's really a lot of the same thing, except I just added more cards. You see we have the 3 Scorpio, the 1 Cobra, the Catty Corn for the lair. Those are the 6 extra slots. And I added more copies of Thrust and Talent because those are the cards that you really want to see. As far as generic going second cards, there are other options for siding that I would like to go over. Ultimate Slayer is really nice because, or Unchained, for example, you can send Flood for Yama. For other fusion decks, you can just send any of the fusions that you would like to send, whether that be Entis or your Evil. Be able to get advantage off of that. Floodgates are more stuff that you can play in regards to your side deck that can shut an opponent's deck down. The danger stuff I kind of want to talk about. The Vanishment locks you out of summoning anything that isn't Infernoid, is why I kind of don't like the dangers. I would also like to point out that they require your hand to be kind of good enough to play with them, which is another reason I wasn't liking the danger stuff too much. It feels the horror stuff does its job but better because it's more centralized towards a specific card and getting out the body, rather than just hope that you hit the right card and special summon out of body and then go from there. But it's just making the RNG factor a little bit less. You'll see that I managed to put almost every name in except the level 5. It really is just because you have the space to. If you want to play other cards, a replacement, if you want to help your going second, and you can, I just think that it's better to have names instead. I also would like to fit the Appaloosa somewhere in here. You'll notice that it's not here. I don't want to take out the Flood because I still do like the Flood. Maybe the Coach King comes out because it is something that's not as consistent as the Appo. If you want to do something like this, you can do that as well. The main point of showing the Coach King was the fact that you can draw into stuff like that as well. Finally, I would like to point out that the Blaster is a flex spot. I have no idea what I want this to be. Outside of that, I really won't go too deep into detail here, as I feel this is a lot of what you saw in the 40 card list, except that it literally just adds the Predaplant engine, the Horus engines, which you saw what they do in the replay. So I'll just get onto the card by card, and we have the 3 Degatrons, the 3 Vanishment, the 3 Patchwork, the 3 Feast, the 2 Pats, the 2 Polys, the 3 Imagination, the 2 Onu, the 2 Deviati, 2 Saitsumas, or the 1 Attendel and 2 Saitsumas, the Sijet, the Instant Fusion, the Barrier, the 3 Blaze, the 2 Jimp, the King Sarcophagus, the 3 Field Spell with the Terraforming, the 3 Imisty, have the level 1 Antra, the 2 Harma, also have the Terraforming, the Monster Gate along with the Reasoning, the 3 Talents, the Lair, the 2 Thrust, the 3 Scorpio, Blaster, which be whatever you want, the Corn for the Jasmine, and the Cobra for the Scorpio. Then onto the extra deck of the Omega, the Guardian Chimera, the 2 Entis, the 2 Tierra, the 2 Evil, the 1 Linkaribo, Nightmare Phoenix, Jasmine, Nightmare Unicorn, Equimax, Flood, and Apo. For everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching and for the 600 plus subs. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out.